Jesus started in a manger, the choir's stuck outside. It all seems sort of appropriate. I'm going to light our chalice with the words from the Oberlin UU Fellowship. We light this chalice to find inner peace, love for each other, and faith in ourselves. Also to be welcoming to whomever we meet and kind to all living creatures. So gather around this night, this light of hope, as we share this time together. Howard Thurman says the holiday season returns to us with the reassurance that life is good. I like that. It's simple. It's a time to lift the spirit. When the mind feels its way into the commonplace things and senses the wonder of simple things in a new way, an evergreen tree, familiar carols, merry laughter. It's the time of illumination when candles burn and old dreams find their youth again, Howard Thurman says. It's a time of harvest for the heart, when faith reaches out to mantle all high endeavor. Faith reaches out to mantle all high endeavor, and love whispers its magic word into everything that breathes. That's very poetic. It's now well established that many of the Christian traditions, we're going to sing a number of carols, or we're going to mumble along to the degree that the CDC finds it appropriate and you find it safe. A lot of them have pagan roots. In fact, the idea of singing winter songs is borrowed from rural pre-Christian communities themselves. The first hymn sung in Rome on record is called Angel's Hymn. By the year 700, a few Christmas carols had been written, and the tradition of singing at the Christmas season was underway. It was established by the 7th century. That's pretty early. They weren't doing it when they weren't singing We Three Kings at the manger. It took a while. However, because the carols were written and sung in Latin, not most people could sing them. Like the common people couldn't sing them. They need the choirs of, the people. By the year 1200, most people had lost interest in the carols because they weren't sung in the native tongues, and it took the time of the printing of the printing press for carols to become established. We're now going to hear a musical offering called Carol of the Bells.
For our next hymn, it's Came Upon a Midnight Clear. Because this hymn was written by a Massachusetts Unitarian minister called Edmund Hamilton Sears, we will sing it all together. Sears, who wrote it at the conclusion of the Bloody War with Mexico more than 150 years ago. The line, "Oh, hush the noise of battle sounds and hear the angels sing," is particularly poignant. Let's imagine that and sing a little louder when this part comes around. Sears was working in Massachusetts in the mid-1800s, and he was asked by a colleague, Reverend Lunt, to write a Christmas hymn for the Sunday school, who thought that most hymns missed a central part of the message of Christmas, that being, in good Unitarian fashion, of there's much work for us to do. So thank you, and sing and listen as you please.
It came upon the midnight clear, that glorious song of old, from angels bending near the earth to touch their harps of gold. Peace on the earth to all good will, from heaven the news will bring, held in solemn stillness lay, to hear the angels sing. Still through the cloven skies they come, with peaceful wings unfurled, and still their heavenly music floats o'er all the weary world. Above its sad and lowly plains, they bend on hovering wings, and ever o'er its babble sound the blessed angels sing.
In the holy quiet of Christmas Eve, we gather in this sanctuary of the Spirit once again. The familiar thing that we do, coming together like this, we have done it before and we shall do it again. There is magic that happens here that we need. We need to affirm the goodness of the human heart. We need to celebrate the beauty of candle contrasts with night and light in the midst of darkness. We come as always, like the mystery that we are, seeking for some clarity of the soul, some inkling of our ultimate purpose in this interval between the promise of birth and the peace of death. We come as always, like the miracle that we are, celebrating the reality of human faith and hope and love, cherishing the bonds that bind us together as one human family, singing our brave songs into the night air. Here we declare that in the midst of winter there is an invincible summer. Here we promise our best selves for the journey. Here we pledge to become all that we are capable of being. Here we place our faith in the beloved community. In the holy quiet of Christmas Eve, may we lift our voices in word and song and spirit as if our lives depended on it, for they do. They do.
Thank you, Stephen. That's Cynthia Rowe, and of course Severin. Think about this. That's like a pipe, right? A simple hollowed out metal tube that we've engineered. And then there's a piano, which is nothing more than a bunch of little hammers hitting on these strings. And then that magic comes out. The world is a magical place. We have to apply our, that's so beautiful. It really is. This next hymn is the first Noel. It's also its English sort of 17th century origins, like many, many hymns we sing are. It has oral roots that run deeper than that. It was originally, the word Noel was written with a W and two L's, so now and then E-L-L. It's a shortened version of now all is well. That's what Noel means. It appears to have been first published in 1833 along with other popular carols, and I'll put my mask on and we will sing a couple verses of the first Noel.
The first Noel, the angels did say, was to certain poor shepherds in fields as they lay, in fields where they lay keeping their sheep on a cold winter's night that was so deep. Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel. They looked up and saw a star shining in the east beyond them far, and to the earth he gave great light, and so it continued both day and night. Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel.
Hark, the herald angels sing. You might hear the angels we just heard overhead, witnessed in this hymn by Charles Wesley, the founder of Methodism. The original lyrics read, "Hark how all the welkin, or heaven, rings." The hymn is responsible for the popular but unscripturally verifiable thought that in the Bible, above the creche in Luke, the angels did sing. This is actually a mistranslation of what we just heard in Luke's verses 13 and 14. Wesley's original lyrics were eventually altered by William Cummings, who combined them with Felix Mendelssohn's music in 1855 and get us close to the form we know the song in today.
Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. Peace on earth and mercy mild, God and sinners reconciled. Joyful all ye nations arise, join the triumph of the sky. With angelic hosts proclaim, Christ is born in Bethlehem. Cry the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. Christ by highest age adored, Christ the everlasting Lord, late in time and behold is come, offspring of the virgin's womb. Veiled by flesh and Godhead see, hail incarnate deity. Pleased as man be man to dwell, Jesus our Emmanuel. Hark, the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King.
The Moment of Magic by UU Reverend Victoria Safford. Now is the moment of magic, when the whole world round earth turns again toward the sun. And here's a blessing. The days will be longer and brighter now, even before the winter settles in to chill us. Now the moment of magic, when people beaten down and broken, with nothing left but misery, and candles, their own clear voices, kindle tiny lights and whisper secret music. And here's a blessing. The dark universe is suddenly illuminated by the lights of the menorah. Suddenly blaze with the lights of the Kinara, and the whole world is glad and loud with winter singing. Now is the moment of magic, when an eastern star beckons the ignorant toward an unknown goal. And here's a blessing. They find nothing in the end but an ordinary baby, born at midnight, born in poverty, and the baby's cry like bells ringing. Makes people wonder as they wander through their lives.
O little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie. Above thy deep and dreamless sleep, the silent stars go by. Yet in thy dark street shine the everlasting light. The hopes and dreams of all the years are met in thee tonight. For Christ
A Little Town of Bethlehem was authored by Philip Brooks, an Episcopal priest while on a journey to the Holy Land in 1865, based on an experience he had while headed to Jerusalem from Bethlehem. Once he headed from Bethlehem, he stopped in a field to watch the dusk envelop the city. Inspired, he attended a church service at the Church of the Nativity. Only when he was going to share about his trip back home to a church group did he write the 5-stanza poem that would become the core of the song. The church organist got a hold of it, who gave it music, and then it was first heard in 1868 before becoming popular in the Episcopal Church.
When I hear these hymns, I always think, oh, that's my favorite hymn. And then I hear the next one. Same thing. we had it's been raining if you haven't noticed, and we had a leak. We have a leak coming down that wall right sort of where the seam is, which is interesting. Because I'm about to tell a story. Had to climb, Kelly was helping me, I had to climb up on the ladder to cover up, put a tarp over there just to make sure that the whole, we didn't ruin the wall, which turned out to work out pretty well. But you'll hear why I'm saying that when I tell this story. The authenticity of this story, I'm getting feedback here, I'm not sure why. I'm not sure it's been true or if it's false or it's been verified. I wasn't there. I wasn't at the resurrection. I wasn't at the Big Bang. Here's the story. In the early 70s, a brand new pastor named Robert Reed, as Robert Reed tells it, and his wife, a newly assigned to reopen a church in suburban Brooklyn, were busy getting everything done before the Christmas Eve service. They were working hard, repairing pews. This was the 70s, and they were painting, etc. By about the 18th, they had things pretty much kind of under wraps, ready for Christmas Eve. There was going to be the unveiling of the church. They didn't have... That is a pointless bar, but my father, who was a contractor. On December 19th, they had just about finished, and a terrible rainstorm happened, and it lasted a couple days, blew into town into Brooklyn. And on the 21st, the pastor, Reed, went over to the church, and his heart sank when the whole back wall that they had just sort of, stuccoed and whatever they were doing, plastered, slid down behind the pulpit. Collapsed. It looked awful. He was heartsick. Driving home, he noticed a flea market, and he stopped at this flea market just to see if he could find something that would cover over this wall, just to cover it up, because they couldn't repair the wall that quickly. They didn't think they could, at least. And inspiringly enough, he's shopping around, and he finds this, it turns out to be, it was a tablecloth, and relieved, and he sort of pulls it out, and he kind of measures it and sees that it's enough time. He buys it with the idea that he can return it if it's not big enough to cover the space. As the story goes, it had also started to snow that night, and so it was rough weather, and there was an elderly woman sort of running unsuccessfully to catch a bus, as the story is told. This story gets a little fanciful here. He pulls over, invites her into the car to take her home. It's Christmas. He's a pastor. He does nice things. The pastor telling of the church repair and the cloth, and he asks the woman if they can stop and just to see, before he has this thing for too long, if he can return it, if he can just see if it's the right size. So they pull into the church, and he sort of gets up there on a ladder, and she's kind of waiting for the finish the ride home, and she's sitting there in the congregation, and he tacks it up, and it turns out to be just about perfect. And she is sitting out there kind of ghost-faced. She says, "Pastor, check the corner and see if there's the initials EBG," she said. They were there. She could hardly believe what had happened. She explained that she had made this tablecloth 35 years ago in Austria, not long before she was forced to leave her husband in the attempt to escape Nazi persecution. She explained how she was thrown in prison, and explained, nearly tearing up. I added the tearing up part because I figured that she must have been doing that. And she never saw her husband again, she said. I didn't make that part up. The woman, being Jewish, declined to come to the Christmas Eve service, but was excited to have her tablecloth, which the pastor agreed to give to the woman after the wall problem was covered up. And the Christmas Eve service goes off. Everything's nice. Nobody particularly notices the tragedy behind the pastor's head. And he explains the story of the tablecloth to the congregation. The church begins to empty out, and there's a man sitting there, and he says, just sitting there through the service, at the end of the service, he says, "That is exactly like the tablecloth that my wife made years ago." Proceeds to tell the other half of the story that the pastor had heard the other half of a couple nights before. The pastor asked the man if he and his wife, the pastor's wife, could take the man for a special ride after the service. married couple, the pastor and his wife, walk the man up the stairs, knocks on the door. They climb the stairs for perhaps the greatest homecoming yet. 2 Jewish people from the Holocaust reunited. I don't know that I believe all that. But that is the end of the story, sort of. Christmas returns to us always as it does, kind of on schedule. It's hard to flip the switch sometimes, right? From the believable to the unbelievable. We have to, muster our energy to get here on time to sing Silent Night. It's hard to step back from our lives and hum carols when we've got so much to do, and it's hard to experience those 1, 2, or even like 10 moments of the season when the imperfections of the holiday and the sort of busyness of our lives and all those things give way to a moment. But they happen, don't they? That story's a big, dramatic, kind of miraculous moment, good Christmas story. But all in our lives, those moments happen to us. I think the goal of Christmas is to not expect too much of it, but to take those moments. I spent the week kind of out visiting people, just kind of dropping off flowers and chrysanthemums. Had just wonderful moments. Take in the little bit Christmas does. You don't have to be a 6-year-old anymore. You don't have to wait for, to Santa to come, although Santa comes. And take those moments that stop you in your tracks and allow you to have a little bit of Christmas. Right? That's it. That's the Christmas you're going to get as an adult. Life is too short to let Christmas pass you by. I believe that. Sit for a minute in the glow of the lights, in the pause in the schedule that Christmas brings up. Stories that are verifiable or not, believe them for just a moment. Be healed, be recharged. It takes a lot of discipline to be a productive person. But it takes spiritual discipline, enough to drop yourself and your concerns from the everyday life that make you a disciplined person, to enjoy Christmas's fleeting quality. Soak it in. The hidden message beneath all the wrapping paper of Christmas and the story of frankincense is the message that our primary job at Christmas and all year long is simply to be. It's very Buddhist, but it's true. Christmas teaches us to just be alive, be a moral and thoughtful person. It taught the Grinch that. It can teach you that too. We're into a collection. My joke is too racy to tell you, so I'm going to pass on that. But we are going to give Split the Plate with Harbor Interfaith, which is a group in San Pedro, and Jen is going to pass the plate around, and we're going to take half of it, and Harbor Interfaith is going to take the other half. And while that is happening, we're going to hear some beautiful music from Tara and Stephanie Osborne. Tara on the bass and Stephanie on the harp, with Severin no doubt getting in the way as he does. We're going to sing Silent Night after I give you the history of the hymn, and the choir is going to process out or begin processing out, and then we're going to follow. But I want the choir to sit for a minute. They're not only to race outside yet. Thank you, Diana. Originally, it was thought that it was written by Haydn, the famous composer's younger brother. But it was actually written by a father as in the priest sense, named Joseph Moore. It debuted on Christmas Eve in 1818. I guess you guys are leaving. I don't know. It's okay. At the St. Nicholas Church, when an Austrian pastor in the town of Oberndorf and his organist co-serving the church sung it together, accompanied on a single guitar. Although the church's music was almost all played on the organ at that time in this particular church, it was in fact the complete failure of the organ that might have led to this whole hymn being sort of famous. Again, this is a verifiable story. The organ, which had sort of been falling apart in this small church, had really essentially completely fallen apart on December 23rd, and indirectly, like I said, prompted the song. The pastor, watching the organ go, stressed out, of course, looked like it was going to be a musicless Christmas Eve, and just frustrated, headed out of the church to walk up the hill. In Austria, as you know, it's just beautiful, a lot of beautiful hills. It was a cold wintry night with snow all around. It was on this walk that he had to face that the holiest night of the year was to be a silent night. And that very phrase had reminded him that a few years earlier he had written a poem called Silent Night. The sort of two things struck him. The next day he walked with the poem to the neighboring town where his friend and the church musician lived. They was far apart at this time as people walked around. With only that day to create the music to match the poem that very night, the two sort of crammed that day and learned, his friend learned how to play it on the guitar, the church musician. And although the congregation felt that it was sort of unorthodox not to have the organ playing on Christmas Eve, they loved it. But the song's history doesn't end there. In fact, its popularity doesn't even begin there. The song, although appreciated at its debut, was really sort of spread by fluke. It was put in the organ like these papers might just live up here for a while, and the organ was closed, and the organ was probably never repaired until a repairman came, found the music and the hymn laying around when he went to fix the organ time later, and he handed both the words and the simple tune to a group of traveling singers in Austria who began to spread it all about. And they did. And tonight, it is sung all over the world. That's another great Christmas story. So let's sing it like we found it. I'm going to come down and hand you lit candles, and we are going to start singing, and we're going to process out. You might want to bring your sheets in case you don't know the words, and we're just going to sing it as we head out out both doors. There we go. Okay. Merry Christmas, everyone. Chris. Yeah. Merry Christmas.